Hello, my name is Stephen Wright. I'm a career coach here at Career Mentor, and we help high-performing financial services professionals make their next smart career move. So have you ever sat down to rewrite or upgrade or perhaps write from scratch your CV and got to the experience section and being a little uncertain as to what to do? Well, in this short video, I'm going to take you through how to get started, how to write something which will be compelling and effective, and perhaps avoid some basic mistakes. Before we get into that, assuming that you are working with the classic reverse chronological format of CV, meaning that you're writing first about your current job and then you go back in time all the way to your first job, assuming that you're using that format, the experience section, which is also known as the work section or the career section, will fit underneath a paragraph which is called your professional profile. Now, let's talk about the professional profile very quickly because it does put the experience section into context. The professional profile is a series of promises of value that you can bring to a business. The skills, experience, perhaps the industry contacts that you have. These are all the things that you can bring with you. And they need to be written in light of what you want to offer and what is being looked for by the firm or the job that you're going for. Now, you may be going for a specific job, or you may be doing a more general CV. And if you're doing a general CV, think carefully about the overarching value narrative that you want to offer with this particular CV. The job of the experience section is now to provide a context and evidence that the promises being made in the paragraph above, the professional profile, are in fact true. So let's go through several points that we need to make. First one is, what are your responsibilities? So we can write about the responsibilities that you have. What are you being asked to do or were asked to do in that particular role? And perhaps you can also add into that context the people or the person who you're reporting to and who was reporting to you. The next thing to think about is the achievements. What are the achievements that you are having or have had in those particular roles? And you may want to pair the achievements with the responsibility. So I was responsible for reducing costs, and this is what I achieved. By the way, in terms of achievements, also think about this. If you are part of a team achieving something, then we need to understand what was the team setting out to do, what did it achieve, and what was your specific role within that. Next thing to do is to think about style. So we want to make the style of your CV in a fairly punchy manner. We want to use exactly the language and the tone of any job spec or any job ad that you've had. If you don't have that, then perhaps look at the website of the company that you're targeting and look at the way in which they're writing. It wants to be written in something that's fairly dynamic, fairly punchy, but we don't want to go into anything that's a little bit too tabloid. So whilst you might have cut costs, you certainly didn't slash them. The other point on style is on using bullet points. Bullet points make things quite accessible and easy for the reader to get to the information that they want, and certainly more easy than going through large blocks of text with multi-clausal sentences, which make the information a little bit hard to reach and somewhat impenetrable. Which then leads me on to the last point here. Keep your sentences relatively short. So once we've dealt with style, we also then can think about the use of numbers. Excuse me. And while we don't want to breach any commercial confidentialities, numbers can be used very effectively to make the claims that you're making about the things that you can do and the evidence that supports that all the more relevant, all the more convincing, and it gives a context to what you're doing. So, for example, if I was to say in one sentence, I was able to cut operational costs in the year 2019-2020, that doesn't read as effectively as if I was to say I was able to cut operational costs by 13% in 2019-2020 without affecting productivity. So using numbers can give the reader a sense of context, and it's all the more convincing. You can express numbers in percentages, money, and just straightforward numbers. Next point is on jargon. Jargon is quite an interesting way of looking at it. Let's perhaps call jargon industry-specific language. Industry-specific language is really useful because it's a shortcut of understanding for people who understand the business that you're in. And there's also something of a bonding there. We understand what we're talking about, so it creates something of a rapport. But on the other hand, we don't want to make this exclusive to people outside that circle who may not really understand what's being said. So strike the balance between using industry-specific language or jargon and making your CV not understandable to the more lay reader. The final thing is that once you've written your experience section, then it's good to read it as a whole. And what we're looking for here is to create a flow, create a story where there's an overarching narrative of growth, growing your skills, growing your expertise, growing your industry contacts and so on, so that the reader gets the understanding of a progression to the point of where you are in your career at the moment. Final point is that there is a growing convention that if you're wanting to discuss jobs which are 10 to 15 years old now, so 10 to 15 years ago, that often in order to save space, they can be summarized in a smaller section called career summary. So you just put all the stuff from the very beginning of your career until about 10 or 15 years ago into a summary paragraph. So there we have it. I hope you found that useful. Think about the promises that you're making that are relevant to the job spec that you're pursuing or the overarching value narrative in the professional statement, and then provide the evidence that you can in fact deliver on those promises in a clear, punchy, concise and compelling manner within the experience section. And that is probably going to serve you very well. I'll be putting the blog that I wrote about this in the comments below, and thanks very much.